We now return to Let's Play Suzerain. Alright, let's read the stuff. Bill of Rights being worked on. We've already read this, have we? Oh, this one we haven't. The 1954 Sordish government budget. After a marathon 18 hours of negotiations, the Sordish governmental budget for the current term has been finalized. The government envisages spending around 27 billion ren next year, almost 16 billion ren more than this year. The 1954 budget sees the first measures of more internal security being introduced. While the details of the allocation of the increased security funding is not yet clear, it is expected that the Ministry of the Interior and Ministry of Justice will both benefit from the increase. Minister of the Interior, Mrs. Graff, has expressed her gratitude for the increase in law enforcement budget, saying that this increase will help us bring and maintain the peace that we've all been waiting for. The Ministry of Health, one of the smaller ministries in Sordland, will also see its budget grow more than expected, which will especially benefit the quality of the healthcare services around the country. Minister of Health, Mr. Benewal, has expressed his gratitude for the increase in the healthcare budget, saying this increase will benefit everyone in Sordland. Reform Committee Status Report. Lucian Gallade reported that so far they have been able to get in total 87 signatures behind the proposal. Efforts are underway to increase the support and reach out to necessary members. We need 70 to get this going, right? And then it still needs approval. Alright. Okay, well, continuing on. Finally, Chapter 2, A New Sordland. The news. The Lockhaven Times. Lockhaven League of Women March. Hundreds of women organized by the Sordish League of Women marched and called for gender equality in the country. The group held signs highlighting the issues of domestic violence, the wage gap, maternity leave, and the sexist attitudes in the education system. Police forces quickly created a security cordon to protect the march after a large group of religious counter-protesters arrived. The calls for equality were drowned by the loud group of conservatives. The protests were a clear reflection of the division that surrounds the country. It also raises questions if the First Lady Monica Rayne's agenda to raise awareness and trigger change on the issue will bear fruit. Geopolitical. Vogslandian Navy forces Agnolian drill ship to retreat from Helgeland. Navy Chief Admiral Kurt Hexer on Tuesday said an Agnolian drilling ship was driven away from Vogsland's exclusive economic zone in the Nurmenlander Sea recently, asserting that such activities will be dealt with swiftly and sternly. The ship entered the area without Vogslandian Navy's prior permission, they said. The illegal occupation of Helgeland does not give Agnolia the right to claim the seas. Our stance has been that if you do anything in our region, you will have to notify us to take our permission. The Navy chief, said at a press conference without elaborating further on the incident. Since 1950, there has been a permanent presence of the Vogslandian Navy in the Markian Sea region, mostly in the form of an anti-piracy force. Experts are concerned about Agnolia's increasing forays around Helgeland, which they believe may trigger a heavy response from Vogsland. And Arcasia fires the M4 ICBM. Dwight Walker has announced the first successful Arcasian intercontinental ballistic missile test, which was conducted at a military test site at the Nuam Atoll in the middle of Oceania. The fired missile, codenamed Missile 4, very original, flew several thousands of kilometers towards the direction of United Contana before crashing down at sea close to the abandoned radioactive Rostov Island. The missile test indicates that Arcasia wants to send a message to United Contana about island bases in the middle of the Oceania, while displaying the Arcasian military technology has advanced. Will Arcasia be able to catch up to United Contana in face of the growing contentious situation between the superpowers? Well, that's great. So where are we talking? Oh, this side. So that ship must have ventured over here. Okay, well that's fun. Oh, here we go. Agnolian offshore drilling near Helge Island increased tensions. Agnolia has started a new oil drilling operation very close to the disputed territory of Helge Island. The tensions increased when the situation turned into a standoff between Vogslandian and Agnolian warships. It took several hours for the gridlock to be resolved, and the situation was de-escalated for now. That's not good. We don't need that going off on our shores. In Laren, military equipment outdated. The General Staff has performed an analysis on our borders to assess our military defense capabilities against a potential Rumberg attack. The results show that our military equipment is outdated and needs replacement as soon as possible. Continuation of the worrying report shows that in the event of an attack, our border would be broken through easily, leaving the primary regions of Sordland exposed. Narble. Education in rural regions requires improvement. Sierra Walda reports that the current education institutions in rural regions of Sordland have been largely neglected. Have we not had this report before? As part of her analysis, the literacy rate in Sordland currently stands at 80%, while rural regions like Narble, the literacy rate of only 64%. The lack of schools per capita also reflects these results. I think we've had that before. Central Bank issues budget deficit warning, I know. The Central Bank of Sordland issued a warning regarding the extensive government budget deficit that has occurred in the first year of the administration. The potential consequences of irresponsible economic management were highlighted. Edith Agnock relayed that a large deficit could have dire consequences on the strength of the currency and hamper the potential of the still-to-recover economy. Edith Agnock, I feel like we've had her before. She's the adopted daughter of Artavishi, yeah, okay. Suzerain. Massive network of BFF priests discovered. The Vice Minister of the Interior has reported the discovery of a large-scale underground network of the BFF that encompasses all cities in Bergia. Under the guise of state-sanctioned priesthood, the BFF has recruited hundreds and possibly thousands of Nerity worshippers, including non-Blutish citizens, to support their cause for independence. A dozen arrests were made, but since most police officers don't speak Blutish, it will be difficult to find the actual ringleader priests of the network. A request was made to ban Blutish as a language from sanctuaries. And Benfi. Benfi Regional Airport overcrowded. We've been receiving reports about the capacity of Benfi Regional Airport. The mayor of Benfi is preparing to put a request forward for an investment to build an international airport in the city. For a touristic region like Benfi, he claims that it would increase the overall prosperity of Sordland. Okay. Well, I mean... okay. I don't know. This thing is still halfway from being completed. I'm a little on the fence about starting a new mega investment project right away. But then again, it's not like we can wait. We need to find some money here. Workers' Right Act. Sign or veto the Workers' Rights Act that was approved by the Grand National Assembly. Section 1 establishes a minimum wage of 2.5 Sordish Ren per hour. Section 2 sets a weekly maximum of 60 hours of labor. Section 3 establishes a double overtime pay per hour of 40 a week, after 40 a week. Section 4 determines that workers are to be protected against occupational hazards and be provided humane work conditions. Section 5 establishes that migrant or undocumented workers have the same workers' rights as citizens. If any employer shall not abide by these rules, they will be heavily fined by the government, and if not corrected, will face legal action. -1 government budget. So now we're going even further into a deficit. Well, I still think it would be better off to do this. That report said deeply into debt. I'm assuming that -1 or 2 is not deep, but then again, I don't know that. We only started at like 2, so hard to say what this actually means. I think we're going to do it anyway. In the news, let's see what this says here. Turn 4. I signed the Comprehensive Workers' Rights Act of 1954 into law. The news. New law on workers' rights. The Workers' Rights Act has been signed into law by President Rayne after the approval of the Grand National Assembly by majority vote on Monday following a 6-hour debate. Monsoon Leak, who campaigned heavily for the bill, also sought to express his gratitude for the confirmation of the new laws, saying it contained much vital rules and regulations for the workers, the backbones of our nation. The new law establishes a minimum wage of blah 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 blah. We know what it says. Okay. Lockhaven Times. Rayne signs workers' rights bill into law. The recently implemented workers' rights bill caused the initial protests against the government to mellow down after the Morbel mine disaster. Chants of anger have turned into solidarity marches. Well, that's good because we've had a few of these issues pop up. So, one of the spokespersons for the Nedum Mining Group has accused President Rayne of acting impulsively with the bill, saying that it puts too much weight on the businesses. After the public announcement, Nedum has received hundreds of lawsuits from people around the country. And the radical workers' rights bill signed. In a surprising move, President Rayne has decided to do something right for his citizens by signing the Workers' Rights Act into a law. This looks as a publicity move after the terrible Morbel mine disaster. The new law establishes a minimum wage and sets a ceiling for the maximum amount of hours on top of new regulations for companies. Mr. Rayne's move to give more rights to the workers has been welcomed by many. On the other hand, this may simply be a diversion from the actual real issues of the government. I would like to point out that I did not make that law. I did not push it. I mean, I am only responsible for signing it, yet this is sort of what the whole problem is with having a figurehead in any government, is that you take the responsibility for it as well. Workers' rights reform. The administration passed a comprehensive labor rights reform, greatly improving the working conditions of employees. So I guess that helped human rights, maybe? Or was this already at yellow? I don't remember what was already at yellow. Anyway. Alright. Any other news? No. Okay, another situation. Oh, several, okay. I forget what these symbols are for whether they're going to be an event or not. But let's do this one. An evening walk with Monica, residence of the President. It was early evening, still light out, with just a faint nip in the air. Frank was at a friend's and Diana was at an art class. Monica and I decided to go out for a walk before dinner. Our favorite place for a stroll was the nearby Capitol Park, the largest green space in all of Holsworth. Before the children were born, we had spent many an evening engaged in deep conversation along the riverside promenade. Another favored path wound through the woods behind the presidential housing complex to a private pond where the children could swim in summer. I was told that Sol himself had it built, the benefits of being president. Monica met me by the door and we put on our coats and hats. I was going to suggest we walk towards Sol Square, but the guards told me it's been closed for yet another protest. Wonderful. I wonder who they're protesting this time. Well, I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say they're two sides of the same coin, nor are they necessarily common thugs. I mean, this is not my goal here. At this point, though, they kind of are two sides of the same coin. It really is the Sword's fault for all of this, though. But you can't say that the young Swords are taking it too far when the Red Youth are also doing the same thing. So, whatever, what does it matter? They're both two sides of the same coin. You always did believe yourself to be above the fray. Did I? Because I tried to participate. I mean, I don't know. Well, it's funny how becoming president changes one's perspective. It's a little bit hostile. In any case, where should we go? I'm not sure Capitol Park is a wise idea in this climate either. Yeah, you're right. It's not worth the security risk. Let's stay inside the gates. I agree. Let's go then, before the children get home. I informed the guards about our route, and we left the house. The guards followed at a discreet distance as we headed towards the walking trail. As we entered the woods, Monica broke the silence. So how was your day? I mean, we could just skirt the issue. How was yours? It's not answering her question, though. Which is better, to just skirt the whole thing, or divert? Is this her idea, or is this my idea? Because if it's her idea, she wants to talk, and so, like, we can just kind of bypass this prompt and, whatever. How's yours? Avoiding my I called it! Avoiding my question, aren't we? Very well. Oh well, I was fine. I caught up on some reading while the children were at school. Just outside the gate, I glimpsed Ionis Krona, the former Minister of Justice, walking towards Capitol Park. I remembered that Nia Morgna used to be his vice minister. He didn't seem to notice us as he walked by. Ionis was once Ionis had once fought hard and strong against Seoul's judiciary reforms, but after years of the government blocking his every move, he gave up on his ideals and became a part of the administration. What did our ideals really mean if they could be changed so easily? What about the people we idolize? Evelyn also came round for tea. She says hi. She was feeling rather low, though. Apparently she and Peter had a bit of a disagreement. Peter's in the doghouse again? How'd that happen? Apparently Peter had too much whiskey as usual and didn't behave when Evelyn's father was over for dinner yesterday. You know Peter. What do you think of this? I mean, Peter does not seem to have much of a professional air about him, I guess. We could have a talk with him about this. Yeah, sure, whatever. Well, that's Peter, perpetually pickled. I'll have a talk with him. Good. Evelyn seemed close to tears. I mean, we don't want to insult her friend. That's a bad choice, but like this is a little... I'm almost afraid we're going to be blindsided here. Aren't you glad you and I don't have these kinds of quarrels? Monica didn't say anything. We kept walking. You know, Evelyn hasn't been the same since what happened to her at Holsword Post last year. What happened to her at Holsword Post? You remember. She got fired for supporting Alfonso. Peter tried everything to get her job back, but it didn't work. Here we go. A sad day for journalism and free speech in Sordland. I completely agree. A sad day indeed. But enough about the Vectorns. I also spoke to Janice on the phone. Who? I mean... Who? It's been a while. I don't actually remember. Others? Others? Janice. That's not the name of my secretary. Who? You remember, my friend from university? No, okay, I would absolutely not be able to know that. We were in the Swedish literature class together. A few years younger than me, red hair, scar on her forehead. We had dinner with her and her husband once or twice. Neither the name nor the description rang a bell. Well, I still don't remember her, but go on. Anyway, she's been working as an executive assistant at the Violent Pictures film studio. She recently became pregnant and asked her boss for paid maternity leave. And guess what? She was fired for it. After asking for maternity leave? That's terrible. I know. I was beside myself when she told me, and that's not all. They immediately replaced her with a younger, less experienced man, the son of an executive, no less. So I mean, this is exactly what we're getting at here, but well, that's utterly ridiculous. I'm happy you agree with me. As it happens, another friend works for a television station that's hiring secretaries, so I connected the two of them. Well, that doesn't solve the deeper problem, though. Exactly. I knew you'd be on the same page. So, my wife is passive-aggressive. Women in this country are still seen as wives and mothers first, human beings second. They're harassed at work, underpaid, blocked from positions of power, and those are the lucky ones. I would actually prefer she just came out and said, hey, look, the fact that there are still places in this country where little girls like Diana are denied the right to an education. Yes, and I'll do what I can to change that. It can't just be you. These little girls and people like Janice need someone to speak on their behalf, a role model, a successful woman. We had reached the pond at the end of the trail. The park bench overlooked the water. Monica gestured to it, and we sat down. Which brings me to my point. I know that the mayor of Anrica, Curtin Lest, we have not talked about Curtin Lest, will be delivering a speech at the annual opening of the Benfey Festival. Curtin Lest is a Swordish politician and member of the United Sordland Party who has been serving as mayor of Anrica since 1940. He previously served as mayor of Benfey from 36 to 40. He's the longest-serving mayor in the country. According to born in Anrica, Lest's family moved to Benfey for his father's career as a lawyer. Having his primary and secondary education in Benfey, he later moved to the capital to attend Whole Sword State University. After his studies, he worked as a correspondent for the Whole Sword Post newspaper. He also founded the National Neurists Association to fight against the decreasing religious and moral values among the youth. In 1930, he returned to Benfey to start his own business. He managed a small seaside hotel and a restaurant before joining the United Sordland Party. He started his political career when he ran as a mayor for the district of Almonds in Benfey and got elected. In 1936, he was elected mayor of Benfey. He organized the famous Benfey Culture Festival as part of the Day of Dissension festivities, which brought millions of nearest tourists to the city over the years. After the sudden death of the mayor of Anrica, Lest was appointed by Tarquin Sol as new mayor in 1940. During this tenure as mayor of Anrica, he promoted the city's cultural heritage sites, investing in renovating old Swordish monuments and increased tourism greatly. His term saw the city expand greatly in size and become logistical center of the greater Whole Sword region. He was later re-elected 3 times in a row, becoming the longest-serving mayor in the history of Sordland. Over the years, he became very popular among the Swordish nationalists and conservatives for his public speeches and accomplishments as mayor. He's considered to be the most well-known mayor in all of Sordland, as well as one of the most popular figures in the party. My wish is to take his place and deliver the speech instead. Lest was one of Sordland's most influential politicians. He had started his career in Benfey before rising to power in Anrica. Benfey's current mayor had personally invited him to make the opening speech. Replacing him with Monica would likely anger him, not enough to cause a major incident, but enough that he might not support me in the assembly. I want to base the speech on women's rights in Sordland, on the oppression and discrimination we face every day, on the basis of our sex alone. I want our voice heard, and this festival is the time to do it. I just need your blessing as my husband and president of Sordland. Monica's eyes were blazing with a fire I hadn't seen since we were students. She wanted this badly, but I had to be careful with my promises. Well, while I agree with what she's doing, this does come off as just a little bit corrupt when I can just be like, this is going to happen. Does it have to be at the festival? Why can't you make your speech another time? I guess she could give me a reasoning for that. Benfey Festival. The Benfey Festival. What's the Benfey Festival? What are we talking about here? Well, let's hope I get to come back round to this. I just want more information. What's special about the festival? It has to be now. Thousands go to this festival, and millions watch the speeches at home. Sordland's women can't wait any longer. Well, all right. I mean, I could be flippant about it. What's the worst that could happen? Well, alright, you got my full support. This is why I love you. Because you can give me things, apparently. Thank you, Anton. You have no idea how much this means to me. Given that we did literally just have a report about women's rights and this issue in the march and whatnot, I think this is probably connected. Monica beamed at me, her face flushed with excitement. One way or another, I want to contribute to this country, no matter what happens. We're not weak, Anton, but we are only strong as long as we stand by our ideals. This is why I had married her, this passion and resolve. I should have anticipated that sooner or later she would join me in the political arena. We rose from the bench and started making our way back home. Otherwise, we'll end up like... Mr. Krona? Mr. Krona was the one that broke his... No, wait a minute. Krona was the guy who got tamped down, right? And then broken? Because both of these guys stood up for their ideals. What is she getting at? Since this guy just appeared... Ionis Krona? Exactly. He backed down on his ideals, and now everyone knows him for what he actually is. Spineless. If that was how people remembered Ionis, how would they remember me? Whatever he'd done, whatever ideals he had lost, he must have had his reasons. Would they remember me as a true patriot, a reformer of the country? What would they write about me in the history books? Let's get back to the house for dinner. I mean, okay. Lead the way. Monica smiled. You know, I believe I will. When we arrived home, I called my secretary Livia and asked her to inform Mr. Lest that Monica would be making the speech in his stead. The sun began to set over the horizon, bathing the clouds in shades of orange and pink. I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, this is a power move that is going to please the suffragettes and the reformists, no doubt, the more liberal wing of the party. We're continually pushing up against the conservatives, however, which is going to possibly hurt me. I'm noticing a little bit of a thing here where all of the little news bits and whatnot are relevant to make you to influence your decisions. So we were told about the 84 signatures, and that we needed more support, and that possibly questioning about will the conservatives support me, and all this stuff. Like, all these little things are dropped to hint at what's going on here. But we have to do this. I mean, this is literally what the theme, what the plot of this story is that we ran on reform, that we didn't get a choice in that. I accepted Monica's offer to make the opening speech of the Benfey Festival, instead of the mayor of Anrica. Where's Anrica again? Anrica's over here, so he's not even part of this anymore, just because he came from there. That's his only that's his only justification. Dare. BFF bombs a police station. In a treacherous attack, the BFF has bombed a police station in Dare. Initial casualties are reported at 3 officers dead and 22 injured. The perpetrators have escaped into the Gumran Mountains near Suzerain, and a search has started to bring them to justice. The border guard has been notified of the attacks in case they try to flee to Wayland. The Workers' Party of Bludia condemned the incident. Yeah, see, so now we're coming to a thing where we need to separate the party from the extremists, and I believe I had talked about this previously, where the party would not want the extremists because that hurts them politically. We need to remember that they are a separate entity. That's part of the whole racial profiling of this. Just because they are Bludians, or Bloods, I guess, does not mean that they all are the same. Okay, what is your deal? Order. Nationwide peaceful protests. There are peaceful protests happening across the country due to recent events. If we don't contain the situation, it might escalate to more violent ones. Okay, but this was red before, was it not? I'm going to have to do this at the end of every episode now, go through so that I can keep track of what is changing. I feel like order was all red before, so now that it's yellow means the situation is improving, despite the fact that, for example, we just witnessed a bombing. So, and I mean, I guess we would say that, that would not be a peaceful protest. So maybe this feeds back into my earlier assessment, which was that overall things are getting better. We're just constantly told about the bad things to possibly influence our choices. The Lockhaven Times. Explosion in Dare. 3 killed, 22 wounded. A bomb attack on a police station in Dare has killed 3 officers and injured 22 others, officials say. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. But we know it was the BFF, because of that internal report. The police of Dare said militants from the British Freedom Front, or BFF, were likely behind the attack and reported that several militants also fired at the officers as they tried to escape the fires of the explosion in the treacherously pre-planned ambush. There's been a wave of unrest in Sordland for the last couple months. These attacks seem to suggest that the racial tensions in Bergia have also increased to very dangerous levels, which raises questions about how the situation should be handled. The Workers' Party of Bludia has condemned the incident, adding that the BFF does not reflect the views or the culture of the Bludish people. Arcasia has called on both sides to avoid violence, but stressed that Sordland has the right to defend itself against attacks by Bludish rebels. Why is Arcadia getting involved? Detonation. Sordland is in a tough spot. Current public reports from the Ministry of Economy are pointing to a deep underlying problem with Sordland's economical standing: debt. It appears that the current ventures to get out of recession have put a considerable dent in the reserves. Although the comments from the administration state that this situation is only temporary, that remains to be seen. Our economic advisors have commented on the matter, saying that the current stance of the administration is hiding the extent of the debt. This, of course, brings up the question, is Sordland turning into a debt nation? Well, I hate to break it to you, but most nations throughout their history have been in debt. Geopolitical. Smolak condemns Arcasian soldiers in Lesbia. This is in Wayland. Lesbia is below us. Wezak President Viktor Smolak on Thursday criticized the Lesbian government for bringing Arcasian soldiers close to the borders of Wayland. Last month, Prime Minister Alvarez and President Walker agreed on the construction of several military bases in Lesbia that would station ATO soldiers. With the arrival of the first Arcasian soldiers to Lesbia this week, Wayland's stance has become increasingly hostile. So Wayland is backed by the CCP, right? CSP, whatever the equivalent is, Contana. Or at least they're friendly to them, right? In his speech on Thursday, Smolak said President Walker has succeeded in spreading Arcasian imperialism to eastern Maricopa, which will have consequences for every one of us in the region. ATO is clearly expanding its influence in our region using Lesbia. We must be careful, said President Smolak, warning the neighboring nations of Agnolia and Sordland to be prepared for future crises. Chancellor Hegel condemns military buildup in Lesbia. In the press conference on Wednesday, Chancellor Hegel of Vogsland condemned Arcasia for building a military base on the Ravnos Island. Which is where? In his statement, Arcasia's action on the Ravnos Island is a provocative move that is undermining the peace and stability in the region. It is also threatening Vogsland's national security. However, Vogsland is not a country to be bullied so easily. We and the entire CSP coalition will correspond in force if Arcasia does not withdraw from the island. I think that is down there. Yeah, okay. So that's right on our border, too. That's something to think about now. We have a CSP, an Arcasia, and an independent boxing us in, and then sympathetic to the CSP right here. I feel like we're going to have to take a side at some point. Which means that in the dispute over Helgeport here, we're going to have to be careful. I had hoped to keep sort of a neutral balance here, hoping that we could get them to help against Rumberg. I don't think that's going to be a thing. Which makes me think we're going to have to pick a side here. And we currently have closer ties to Agnolia. We definitely have stronger relations with them. than we do with Vogsland. And improving relations with Vogsland is going to hurt us most likely with Lesbia, who has a strong military, but neutral relations. We need to have some strong partners against Rumberg. Agnolia and Wayland are weak. Lesbia and Vogsland are strong. We're probably only going to be able to go with one of them. Anyway, that'll be for another time. I don't know. I never see this thing go forward. I honestly think it's going to take to the rest of the game for this to kick in. So we're not going to see it help with anything. That of anything worries me the most. Like this war situation, all this stuff, you know, I see that as taking time, obviously. But it's not pushing the game fast enough. And maybe that's just the thing. Like, you know, it's not pushing any of this fast enough. We're not getting talks with these people. Like, we keep talking internally. You know, they're saying, oh, we should talk to this person. We should talk to that person. It hasn't come up. And, I mean, it took this long to get to Chapter 2. I guess it's just a very long game. I don't know. Maybe that's all there is to it. Maybe eventually this does kick over. Maybe we go through the whole term. Every year brings a budget. I don't know. I don't know. But it makes me worried that we make all these choices and it just feels like we're digging a hole that I don't know that I'll be able to get out of. Maybe that's the point of the story. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to end it here. I'll see you next time.